Hi, my name is Cathy. I work with the OPW and I'm a gardener here at Ashtown Kitchen Garden in the Phoenix Park. And today I'm basically going to talk to you about growing vegetables from seed to planting out. So today I have leeks. The variety is Portobello. So we would have started these in modular trays in the glass house in March, April time. This particular one was done in April. So if you have a window box or a trough at home, you can do that in a windowsill if you don't have a glass house, or in a port, just somewhere warm for them to germinate. Usually this takes about 2 weeks for that to happen. So generally you have your seeds, which look like this, as you can see. So generally you try and drop 2 to 3 seeds per module, or if you have a pot you can sprinkle them over the pot as well, and once they have germinated you will leave them there for possibly 7 weeks, which we have done here. We've taken them out for 7 to 10 days to acclimatise it before planting it out. So for whatever space you decide to plant in, either your trough or your bed, here we have a raised bed which is well drained. We have weeded it, which is very important to stop competition. Give it a fine tilt, take any lumps out, and the bed is ready for planting. We have sprinkled it with water beforehand just for the soil to settle. So generally what you use is a cane. I have a bamboo cane here to use as a dibber. You have a trowel which you can use as your spacer and also for planting. If you have a larger space, you can use the handle of a rake, which will make a nice straight trench if you're doing a larger size plot. So I'll start off with my bamboo cane. You generally make a hole about 15 centimeters deep, and you will take your leek out of your tray, and you can see the roots on the bottom is generally a good sign that they're ready to be planted. You can also see it on the tray below that there's a good root system there. So generally you will place them into the hole and put the soil back around. And the same again here. So depending on the size of the trough you might have or the pot, you can plant them closer together. It just means you might have thinner leeks. Or if you have bigger space, you can plant them 15 centimeters apart. Or if you have 2 trenches, make sure your trenches are about 30 centimeters apart. And that's basically it. Otherwise, if you have a trowel, you can make a trench, simple as that, the way you would with planting onions. And the same thing, you can plant them up like that. So generally, the leeks are sown in March, April time, and they're ready for harvest come October, and they'll stay in the beds right through till February. And usually you would just take them up with a normal garden fork, so you can take as you go. If you wanted to prolong having a white stem on your leek, generally 2 to 3 weeks before you harvest, there is a process called blanching if you decide to do that. This is where you bring up the dry soil to the stem, keeping it below your leaf growth. And this excludes the light and it gives you longer, whiter stems if that's what you want. If you're not worried about that, you do not have to do that. Just enjoy harvesting between October and February whenever you're ready. Hi, so we're now in the fruit tree section of the walled garden here in the Phoenix Park. So in particular, we're going to talk about apple tree pruning, but it also is the same technique for both plum and pear as well within this garden. So the tips would be for pruning for the summer months and the winter months. So if you're starting off and you want to try and prune your apple tree the way we have here, this is called espalier apple trees. This was popular in the Victorian times because they needed space, and it's a very good way of growing a variety of crops underneath it. Also, the reason the branches are lateral is the sun hits it evenly, there's good airflow, and it causes less disease. So if you're starting off and you want to buy a single whip variety, the way you would prune this particular technique would be to start off with your main stem. If you have a wire frame or a wall, if it's down much lower, you would pretend this is the base of your tree. You would cut to above a node, which would look more like this one when it's young, except slightly thicker. You would cut above the leaf, which is known as the node of the branch, and therefore you would aim in the winter months to get a lateral stem and also 2 branching stems, which would be your branches for this year. So basically you can see it here. This would have been cut to here from the beginning. We got a main leader and 2 offset branches. So from looking at this tree, it was planted 9 years ago roughly. So every year you aim to get your next step. You don't always get it, and sometimes you have to go back down and you lose a year, but usually you'd get a leader and 2 side branches. So this particular technique is very good for letting the sunlight in to ripen your fruit. So in particular, in the winter, you would prune for vigor. So if you have a small tree, you prune in the winter months when it's dormant to get your vigor, which are these branches, which are known as water shoots. So a good example for your summer prune would be one like this. So this would be your water shoot, which you can see here. You've got your fruiting apples, which you can see there. So you want the energy to go back into this and not into the leaf growth. So you would pick a node, usually 2 to 3 above your fruit crop, and you would cut. This directs all the energy back into the fruit and improves the spurs for next year. It's just a really good way of allowing the airflow to get through to the branches, for the fruits to ripen evenly, and it's also a very attractive way of growing your fruit. You can see them all ripening. So you can also do this with plum trees and pear trees, which we have in the wall garden. These are typically grown on our brick wall, which surrounds the garden. So the idea of the brick wall would be the sun heats the bricks during the day and it lets it out evenly over the evening. So it ripens your fruit much quicker. So if you have a garden wall at home, an espalier fruit tree would be perfect.